At 11:47 a.m. Eastern Time, the President of the United States joined the first female Prime Minister of Japan in the Oval Office. For the next 27 minutes and 7 seconds, he did what he usually does when the cameras are rolling for the world to see. He took credit for other people's achievements. He rambled incoherently from topic to topic. He lied about the war, and on this occasion, he also decided to humiliate our country by trying to turn one of our greatest tragedies into a punchline. When asked by a Japanese reporter why the United States didn't warn allies like Japan before launching strikes on Iran, Trump suddenly became animated. He raised his voice while grinning and said, "We didn't tell anybody about it because we wanted surprise." Who knows better about surprise than Japan? Okay. Why didn't you tell me about Pearl Harbor, okay? Right? He then looked back at the reporter and added, he's asking me, do you believe in surprise? I think much more so than us. A few awkward loyalty laughs broke out from his side of the room. And then the room went quiet and he kept rambling on. And aside from the obvious absurdity of asking why no one warned him about Pearl Harbor, an event that occurred nearly 4.5 years before he was born, Pearl Harbor is not a joking matter. It never has been. We lost more than 2,400 Americans that day. Sailors were trapped inside the USS Arizona, where they banged on the hull before they drowned or met equally horrific fates. It is a memorial and a burial ground, and it is a wound this country and Japan spent decades healing together, carefully, deliberately, because both nations understood that the alliance built from that wreckage was worth more than anyone's ego. Every president before Trump understood that, the delicate line that had to be walked, every single one until Donald Trump. For her part, Prime Minister Takaichi looked equal parts shocked and unsurprised, her face telling the whole story. She pulled her shoulders back slightly, like she was creating distance without moving her chair. Her hands stayed clasped tight in her lap, fingers interlocked, but her eyes began scanning the room to see if others were equally horrified. As he kept speaking, she pursed her lips as if physically stopping herself from reacting. It was noticeable, but not dramatic. But you could see the shift. A nervous half-smile flickered, then disappeared. And when it was clear the damage had been done and the performance wasn't going to end anytime soon, she glanced down at her watch, signaling she had had enough and that she was ready to be done. But the Pearl Harbor comment, as disgraceful as it was, wasn't even the most dangerous thing Trump said in those 27 minutes. It was just the most offensive. The most dangerous part was when he exposed his own lie about the war. Because just the night before on Truth Social, Trump posted that the United States knew nothing about Israel's strike on Iran's South Pars gas field, part of the largest national gas field in the world. He said Israel, and I quote, violently lashed out on its own. He said Qatar had no idea it was coming. He framed the whole thing as if the United States had been blindsided, just innocent bystanders watching someone else's war spiral out of control. That was the night before. But at the meeting with Takaichi, sitting beside him and the cameras rolling, a reporter asked Trump directly whether he had spoken with Prime Minister Netanyahu about Israel strikes. And Trump didn't hesitate. He said, yeah, I did. I told him, don't do that. And he won't do that. We didn't discuss. We're independent, but get along great. It's coordinated. But on occasion, he'll do something. And if I don't like it, and so we're not doing that anymore. So he knew. He spoke to Netanyahu. He described a coordinated relationship. And then he tripped over his own words trying to hold a story together that had already collapsed. Because he'd told us a completely different version just 12 hours before he said that. So either he'd lied the night before to distance himself from the fallout after Iran retaliated by bombing Qatar's largest gas facility, or he lied that day to look like he is in control, or both, because what he said was incoherent. The kind of tangled, lurching half sentences you get from someone who has no real strategy and is just improvising to cover the last lie with the next one. But buried inside that same exchange was something just as revealing, because when he was asked about the economic damage the war is causing, Trump said, and I quote, "I thought it would be worse, much worse." So someone warned him. Before he launched this war, someone set him down and told him it would hurt the economy, that gas prices would spike, and that families who were already stretched thin would feel it at the pump and the grocery stores and in their heating bills. He heard that, and he launched the war anyway. His response wasn't to find a way to protect us from it. It wasn't to plan for the impact or cushion the blow. It wasn't even to build in any safeguards for the people who would pay the price while he sat in the Oval Office watching it unfold on television. It was essentially, oh well. He weighed the cost of this war against the lives of ordinary Americans, and he decided our pain was an acceptable price to pay. And that brings us to what was really happening in that room, beneath the flattery and the photo ops. Because Takaichi didn't fly halfway around the world just to wish Barron Trump a happy birthday, or tell Donald Trump he's the only man who can bring peace. She said those things to butter him up because she needs him. Her country is in trouble, and the man sitting next to her is the reason why. The United States has quietly been pulling troops stationed in Japan and redeploying them to the Middle East. More than 2,200 Marines based in Okinawa have been shipped to the region to support operations in Iran. Reports indicate that Patriot missile defense systems are being discussed for redeployment from South Korea to bases in the Middle East. And all of this is happening at the exact moment China is escalating military exercises around Taiwan, increasing flights near the island, and testing just how far it can push while America is looking the other way. The AP reported why deep in their coverage. The U.S. troop shifts have removed a check against China's power. At the same time, China has launched large-scale exercises around Taiwan. A defense expert warned this raises the potential that the United States will be distracted and bogged down in the Middle East at a time when the deterrence problem in East Asia has never been greater. That is why she was there. She told him he was the only person who could achieve world peace. She praised his leadership, and she promised 250 cherry blossom trees as a gift for the United States' 250th anniversary. And she told him, through an interpreter, that the global economy was, and I quote, about to experience a huge hit because of the war, but framed it like a challenge only he could solve. She did it masterfully because she is a protege of the late Shinzo Abe, who was assassinated in 2022, and who had built one of the closest personal relationships any foreign leader ever had with Trump. She inherited the playbook, and she's running it better than he ever did. There's the flattery, the personal touch, the strategic gift-giving, and the ability to tell him exactly what he wants to hear while quietly advancing her own agenda. She knew what she was walking into that day, even before she had left Tokyo, because she told lawmakers this would be a very difficult conversation, and she wasn't wrong. But she executed her plan with precision and left with her alliance intact and her dignity preserved. While he sat there grinning, thinking he'd won something, she's the real deal maker in this story, and he has absolutely no idea. And through it all, he kept finding ways to take credit for her success. Early in the meeting, Trump said, "We have a very special person, just won a tremendous election in a record-setting fashion. See, we have something in common. And I was very proud and honored to endorse the Prime Minister because of the fact that I thought she was really good." He returned to it again and again throughout the 27 minutes, praising her most successful election in the history of Japan and calling her a popular, powerful woman, always adding how he had endorsed her, as if he was the reason she won. But we also saw that these performances are getting harder for him. Throughout the meeting, Trump was noticeably less animated than usual. He sat hunched forward in his chair, still doing his trademark mouth breathing between thoughts. He rambled, he stared at her with that flat, unsettled gaze as he gets when he is having trouble concentrating. And the second the meeting ended, but the cameras were still rolling, we could see him completely checked out. Just like that, the show is over. Whatever is left of the man behind the act is fading fast. But while Trump was putting on this spectacle in the Oval Office and cracking jokes about dead Americans, the machinery behind him was busy doing real damage. Because these performances aren't just embarrassing, they're distractions. He likes to look powerful. He likes the camera, the flags, the foreign leaders seated beside him. But while Takaichi was in that room fighting to secure the safety of her country, his administration was systematically dismantling the foundation of ours. Late that same day, the FCC approved Nexstar's $6.2 billion acquisition of Tenga, creating the largest local television operator in the United States. To make it happen, FCC Chairman Brendan Carr waived a rule that has been in place for more than 2 decades, one that prevents any single company from owning stations reaching more than 39% of American TV households. This combined company will now reach 80%. Waiving that rule here is consistent with longstanding FCC authorities, and doing so promotes the underlying purpose of the FCC's media regulations by promoting competition, localism, and diversity. That's what Carr said in his statement. His words directly manipulate the true meaning of what he did. And Nexstar's CEO, Perry Sook, thanked President Trump and Chairman Carr by name. This happened less than 24 hours after 8 state attorney generals sued to block the deal. They called it illegal and a direct threat to the diversity of viewpoints Americans depend on. The lone Democratic FCC commissioner, Ana Gomez, called it a closed-door rubber stamp that was pushed through without a full commission vote. She said the consequences, and I quote, will be felt in living rooms and newsrooms across the country, resulting in fewer voices, less competition, and higher costs for consumers. I've shared before how my biggest concerns for what is happening are the dismantling of the free press and the erosion of the First Amendment, along with real election interference by the Trump administration. And when I saw this headline, my stomach dropped. I'm never without hope, but this is a big blow for our country. This is what I've been warning about for months, and today it happened. And this is not just a business deal. This is one step closer to state-run media being our only media. When one company controls what more than 60% of American households see on their local news, we're in trouble. Think about how most Americans still get their news. They turn on the TV in the morning, they turn it on again in the evening, and maybe they catch a late-night broadcast right before bed. They trust what they see because it's their local news station, their local anchors, their local weather, and sports. They're going to see what one company, a company that just publicly thanked this president by name, decides to show them. And this isn't just about what's on the screen. It's about what gets cut. When one company owns this many stations, consolidation follows. Newsrooms shrink, reporters get laid off, local stories stop getting covered. The investigations that hold local governments accountable, the ones that catch corruption at the city and county level, those disappear first. And when those stories stop being told, the rot spreads faster because nobody is watching. Every authoritarian regime in modern history has consolidated media before consolidating power. Orban in Hungary bought up outlets through allies until independent journalism was nearly extinct. Erdogan seized control of Turkey's major broadcasters. Putin nationalized Russian television and turned it into a propaganda arm of the state. The methods are different every time, but the goal is always the same: control the information and control the people. And now it's happening here. No president with good intentions would ever waive this rule. There was a reason it existed. There was a reason no administration before this one would touch it, because the people who built these guardrails understood that a democratic republic cannot survive without a diversity of voices telling the truth. The minute you let one entity control the flow of information to the majority of the country, you've handed someone the keys to reality itself. This is one of those moments when we must all take action. Please contact your governor's offices and attorney general and thank them if they are already part of the lawsuit to block this. And if they're not, ask them to join. This was expected. As we get closer to the midterms, we will see even more blatant acts of political manipulation coming from this administration. That we know for sure. And this is another reminder of why the independent media matters so much. Those of us not tied to corporate money and who are only supported by individual readers will continue to be able to bring you the stories that the Trump administration is hoping these MAGA-aligned networks will block. This is the reality of what we are facing in the United States of America under Donald Trump as president. Please consider a paid membership to your favorite independent media, not just mine, but all of the voices who are committed to doing all we can to make sure that the truth is there, especially before our next elections, because the pipeline they control just got a lot bigger, and ours has to grow to match it. I keep coming back to that Pearl Harbor moment, not because of what Trump said, but because of what happened that terrible day. I've stood on the memorial above the Arizona many times. I've looked down at the water where you can still see oil rising to the surface more than 80 years later. They call them the black tears of the Arizona, and below the water lie the remains of more than 1,000 sailors and Marines. I think about how some of them were teenagers, and that water is their grave. But what I think about most when I stand there is what happened in the moments after. Men and women who had just watched their world explode didn't run. They jumped into the water. They pulled strangers from burning wreckage. They rushed towards the fire, not away from it, and they didn't hesitate. They helped each other because that's who they were. That is what this country is capable of when the worst happens. And yes, what followed wasn't all bravery. What followed also included one of the darkest chapters in our history, the internment of more than 120,000 Japanese Americans, rounded up because of the way they looked. The ugliness is part of the story too, just like what we're seeing now, with immigrants being treated as disposable, and with families being torn apart, and with cruelty being sold as strength. We have to hold both truths at the same time. What we're capable of at our best, and what we're capable at our worst, because that's the only way we get better. Sometimes I find more hope in our history than I do in today, because I know what we're made of. That kind of bravery, that kind of love of country, where you rush into fire to help, the real kind. Not the hollow, flag-wearing, hat-wearing version Trump sells. That's still in us. It always has been, and I know we'll get back there, because we always do. And this time, it will be better, truer, and more just for everyone. And that's why I still have hope for America, and you should too. If these messages are resonating with you, please take a moment, make sure you're subscribed to my channel, give the video a thumbs up, leave a comment, anything to let the algorithm know to show it to more people. And for all of my daily posts, you can find me on Substack by searching Heather Delaney Reese, and I've included a link for you below. And remember, no matter how dark the days get, I will be here every single day, and together we will always have hope for America. I'll see you tomorrow.